Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here,
Yes, and Bridget. Hello.
number 133, which has no significance whatsoever.
No, except that it is almost Christmas, isn't it? And that's one thing at least we know we've got in common with everybody.
That's true. Also, like many people, we've both got coughs and colds,
Yes.
and
This dreaded lurgy, absolutely.
every night we say, I think I'm going to be fine tomorrow.
Yeah.
And who knows?
Well, who knows? Maybe we will.
Right.
Absolutely.
But there are bits of Christmas around. We've managed to get a Christmas tree, which was good. Which is, would you say it was good size?
Yeah, it's a beautiful
Christmas
tree. We always have a live tree, and I love them.
In our family, I always say, we don't want it too big. And our daughter says, I don't want it too small. And it usually ends up about the same as this one.
I
Doesn't it?
know,
So that's
exactly.
going well. What else have we got?
Well, we've got we've got some things that are fairly traditional above our mantelpiece, and our very special crib, which we love to bits because our son Joe brought it back from Kenya, and it was made by women in a working group, and it is the most exquisite
It's
thing with the figures
absolutely
made of
beautiful.
dried banana
Yeah.
skin. And what I love every year when I put it out is the animals, because obviously they're not sheep and goats, they're wild pigs, and
There's a definite zebra.
there's a definite zebra, there's a lion, so that always means an enormous amount to me. So that's up and ready and done.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And there's some German ornaments left over from trips in the past to
Yeah, there
Germany
are. There are.
at Christmas. So it's all right. But there is a bit of one odd thing here, isn't there?
Well, it's one or two odd things, maybe. I mean, we've got two big bookcases that are totally empty, haven't we?
They have no books in them.
No, they have no books in them.
And on our left is an even stranger piece of furniture because you can't even see what it is. It's a long... Well, what you see is a long piece of orangey decorated cloth, about 8-9 foot long.
Yeah.
And it's flat on top, and there's obviously something underneath it. The reason it's there is that we thought we were moving house before Christmas. So
Absolutely.
one of the reasons for a considerable angst that's arisen among us, me, Bridget and I, is that we're not. But we've packed all our books.
We did, and a lot of other
So
stuff.
all our books are under that cloth, and it's turned into this thin, long piece of furniture. And in a couple of weeks, we have to get moving with that all again. So we're having to live with that. But there we are.
I was quite intrigued, though, because, we were talking about decluttering, and we've had quite a lot of response about decluttering. Well, having decluttered and put things in boxes, I'm having to clutter again by hunting out plates and bowls and, I don't know, so many things, really, that I had neatly packed away in order for us to have Christmas here. And I thought it was a very good example of the opposite of decluttering, really.
Yeah,
It was quite upsetting, if I'm absolutely honest, as I took out every neat piece of bubble-wrapped plate and bowl. And
well, it was much more
candle.
complicated than the books, because the books you could, if you wanted, just take them out. But some of the china, you can't just sort of fling it out, because it was very carefully
That's
wrapped.
right.
But
So
we'll manage.
We're a bit
we'll manage.
confused, really.
We had to have a communication, didn't we, from someone who is an expert on decluttering.
Well, we did. She's written a book about it, and somebody else referred to this as well. And it is the crux of what she said. I think is really important. I think we might have touched on it, but that clutter is as much a spiritual as a physical problem, which we definitely touched on. And I thought this was interesting. It's really difficult to tackle it if you think of getting
This
rid
is what
of
she
things.
says, isn't it?
A
Yeah.
negative soul-destroying process bound to discourage anyone. To make it into a positive process, decisions need to be about what to keep and then how to clear up for the best environmental impact. I mean, that is absolutely right. But that doesn't mean to say everybody's made differently. I mean, our eldest son very rarely looks back. He always looks forward. He's very good at decluttering, very good at making sure that the passage ahead of him is as clear as possible. But lots of people, including us maybe, are not quite as able to do that, really.
I think the whole thing broadly is a very interesting thing. I mean, we've known people, one or two people who are real visionaries, but they have decluttered people from their lives. And if they care to look over their shoulders, they'll see the bodies at the side of the road.
Well, should we just make them the problems cluttering the side of the road, not the actual people? I mean, that sounds
but
like...
you know what I'm saying, that people who are part of something and were enjoying being part of it and got involved in it and thought they were in it, suddenly are not. Yeah. Because there is a particular view that says, I'm going on to that thing over there that I think is really important.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't involve... anyway, so there are all sorts... I never thought when we started talking about it how complicated it can be. But I'm really grateful for the words from someone who's actually involved in this.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
I mean, somebody else responded, didn't they? I liked myself what you said when you said sometimes it's important to put it on a shelf. And I think it needs to be, even if you're talking about something spiritual or real, a sort of visible shelf in the sense that you don't put it back in a cupboard. You know, you say, I need to deal with this. Yeah. I need to declutter this area that is mucking up my life, but I can't do it quite yet. So it's still a focus. I don't know. I thought that was very helpful, really. And I know somebody wrote to say that it's quite serious stuff, you know, and perhaps needs to be done at the right time for you. You know, a lot of people try and get rid of absolutely everything, don't they, after somebody dies. And my mum was a very stoic, sensible person, and she said, well, I suppose I'll have to get rid of all Father's stuff now. I don't need it. And I said, well, what is important to you? And I know this isn't quite the same thing, but in a way I think it sort of is.
I think it's in the same area.
She said, well, his hat. And I thought, of course his hat. He had a flat cap, didn't he? And a scarf. And a few other bits and pieces. And it wasn't the right time for her to declutter to the point of throwing everything away. And I think that has to apply, doesn't it, to other things?
Yeah, I think panic-stricken decluttering is probably not a very good idea. We've known... Obviously, because time, years are passing, and we've known a few people who've lost people they love, including us. And it's a very interesting tension, that how soon you're able to simply lose stuff that has belonged to somebody. It's quite a sad thing.
But I remember, Adrian, at one point, and this isn't much to do with it, but I feel a bit embarrassed about this, really, but our children had some favourite books, and I thought, you know what, the time has come for me to get rid of all these books because the children are too old to read them. So I took them to the jumble sale, of which there were jumble sales at that time, and then I felt so sad I went and bought them all back again. Mog the Cat, and The Tiger Who Came to Tea, and the Alfie books, and various other things. And Dogger, and I brought them home, and I put them away, and the joy is that our little grandson is now actually enjoying those books, and I thought, yes, once I did the best thing.
I read Mog the Cat to Rafa, our grandson, sitting in bed the other day, and I'm really glad it hasn't gone.
There you go.
Because I love Mog.
So it wasn't the right time.
No, and you did the right thing buying them all back. But before everyone rushes out to buy back everything they've given away, and someone says, I support you with decluttering, for goodness sake. And then someone else talking about forgiveness, isn't there? Which is...
Well, forgiveness is such a big thing, and I think just before Christmas it hurtles into your mind, doesn't it? Especially as sometimes Christmas isn't easy, and you're with people that rub you up the wrong way, or you struggle with, or you don't really want to make contact with. And I was very interested, you know, this wretched situation going on both sides of the Atlantic with Harry and Meghan and Kate and William and the royal family, and everybody taking sides one way and another. And I was interested when asked that Justin Welby had to sort of say something about that. And he first of all said, as he married them, he has a pastoral connection. But then he said, as a Christian, I live in the belief that forgiveness comes from God through Jesus Christ, and that God, particularly at this time of the year, God breaks into the world to open the way to forgiveness through the Christ channel. Now that all sounds like this very straightforward sort of absolutely right. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And then he said, but the way we welcome that opportunity is different for everyone, and there has to be a right time. And I thought, so he is saying we need to look for the opportunities. We need to wait for the moment where maybe we can, or maybe we can just move in the direction of a situation. And Christmas and the idea that God knew we couldn't do stuff and so brought Jesus Christ into our world. It's maybe a good time to at least to put onto a visible shelf in your mind the things that you need to face so that they can be decluttered in the right way, I suppose.
I think it's hurt the church for years, the idea that you've got to sort it all out at once.
Absolutely.
You do have to put some things on the shelf, and they can take years. I think we told the story a while ago about the lady we knew who finally heard the line about forgive your enemies, as forgive us as we forgive our enemies, and had never really heard it. No. And she must have actually been in a room where it was spoken, or a church, thousands of times in her life. But it suddenly hit her, and it actually changed her life, because I know she'd never focused on it. So some things do take a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking about puzzles, and I suppose there are always puzzles, aren't there? Whenever you want something to be clear-cut and straightforward, things don't seem to... The opportunity maybe doesn't come, or maybe you try and take an opportunity and it's thrown back at you, or maybe you get a present wrong, or we were talking to somebody who's... she said that the whole of her married life, and she was married for 40 years... she longed for the opportunity to put things right with her mother-in-law and never did. I mean, she hadn't done anything wrong, but she never did. No. And what a puzzle when you're a Christian and her husband was a Christian and they prayed about things and they sought opportunities. It's a puzzle, really.
What do you think she actually wanted from that then?
I think she was bewildered, and sometimes we are, aren't we, when we can't put something right. Yeah. And as I say, I think sometimes at Christmas all these things come to the top of our heads, really. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, our Christmas is so bizarre. Shall I tell them about the Christmas tree?
Yeah,
well,
it's a really
we were
strange story.
Absolutely sure that we were moving before Christmas. And I knew I could get round into the back garden of the place we're moving into. So when I bought the Christmas tree, I was so sure we'd be there. I thought, well, it's stupid. I was being so sensible, I thought it's quite stupid to bring the Christmas tree back here and have the removal men have to move the Christmas tree. I know what I'll do. I'll take it round to the back of the house and I'll leave it there. And not only that, but in order for it to spread its wings, I'll take all the wrapping off it and just leave it. And then when we move in, I can just move it through and it can be in our new living room. Well, of course, we're not there. And so I had to phone the estate agent and say, I'm just letting you know that I've got to snook round the back of our house again, our house to be, rather, and collect the Christmas tree and bring it back and put it in the car and bring it home. So, and I let her know because I was a bit worried that her neighbour might think somebody's round that house stealing trees. But it just felt so bizarre and berserk somehow.
I think it's so much our lives, though, isn't it? It's always happening. I can easily imagine the police rolling up,
I know,
saying, "What do you think you're doing?" And you saying, Oh, it's all right. We were going to buy this house, but we can't yet. But I put the Christmas tree over the fence because I thought we'd be able to get it before, but we can't go here. And I think after a bit, I remember you in that circumstance like that once where you hadn't got any tax.
Sorry, what are you talking
I'm
about?
just going to tell you a little story.
Okay, well, I'd like to check what this little story is. It doesn't sound very good to me.
There was some problem. It might have been.
What is it?
Might have been parking, but there was a traffic warden and a policeman by our car, and
I don't like the sound of this at all.
No, listen, and there was some problem, a technical problem with what you had or hadn't done. But when you arrived, looking very hassled indeed, probably with oceans of children hanging off you, and started an incredibly complicated... I remember you saying, one of them said, I think we might leave this one.
I think anybody wouldn't think that was a ploy, really.
No,
I don't know.
Think so either.
There are puzzles around Christmas, though, aren't there? Much, there always were, much bigger than our room and Christmas trees and various things. I mean,
yeah. One of the sketches we sometimes do is between Mary, the mother of Jesus, and her house group leader, who we suppose is called Bernard, and Bernard tries to talk Mary and succeeds in talking Mary into giving up the idea of going to Egypt because it would be dishonouring to God to think God can't protect them. And the house group leader says, do you seriously think God is going to let a group of children, all those children, be killed just so you can get to Egypt? And sometimes, that verse, Jesus wept, came at a point where one world crashes into another world, and you look at what you're supposed to do, what your responsibilities are, where you're supposed to go, and how you're supposed to make decisions, and the collision is so awful that it just makes you want to cry or break down. So for those who encounter those, I think that is perfectly normal. And I remember writing years ago about Peter at the gates of the garden when he'd denied Jesus, and Jesus looked at him and he wept in the shadows. And thinking then, this this weeping is because he let him down, and because he knew he would, and we all do, and we know we will. And it's as important to remember how that crash is going to be if it comes. I think where one world smashes into another, but it ain't easy.
No, it's not. And I know we had an email from somebody asking if we could look at one or two of the really complicated, really difficult things about forgiveness, but it's so something to think about maybe after Christmas. Yeah, I think it probably is. I'll tell you something I was thinking, Adrian. I remember when we had our first son, and we were so over the moon, and we were almost worried that if we had another child, we wouldn't be able to love them as much. And of course you do. Your love just seems to expand and expand, really, with children. And sometimes I think, we talk a lot about compassion, fatigue, and this Christmas the world is so broken yet again. It, for different reasons than last year and different reasons from next probably, but children are suffering as they always do. There are difficulties, there are tensions, there are problems. And I think, like I was saying about not putting things away in a cupboard, maybe we just put these things on a shelf and we look at them openly and allow the hurt in us openly and ask this Jesus of love who came down to expand the love in us, just like we expanded without even noticing it, the love we had for each of our children, so it encompassed all of them. What do you think? I mean, I still like this shelf idea, but I like the idea of keeping it visible. The danger is sometimes when we talk about putting something on a shelf, the image is putting it miles away in a dark cupboard.
No, I think it's more to do with not dumping it.
Not dumping it and not dealing with it quite yet.
And not dealing with it yet. And I'm going back to dear old Naaman, who also talked about, who was worried he'd have, after being healed and knowing that who God was, he'd have to go back and hold his master's arm in the temple. And he said to Elisha, does it matter? And Elisha said, go in peace. Sometimes I'm quite sure God says, shelve it, don't forget it, go in peace.
Yeah.
Do the next thing.
Yeah.
And when you've done that, we'll come back and we'll look at that and make sure we sort it properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's never easy. I don't think anything is ever as easy as it ought to be.
But this Christmas maybe will be special in a different way, a new way, a way that we hadn't thought about. I mean, our Christmas certainly is, our brilliant piece of furniture made of boxes and our strange empty bookcases. And I know I'm going to discover loads of things that I haven't thought of, that I've already packed. But maybe it'll be special in a different way. And maybe for you, this will be a really special Christmas in a way you hadn't thought about.
Yeah, I hope so.
And we'd love to hear about that.
I hope Jesus will be born in something in your life.
Absolutely.
In a way we never thought of.
Yeah.
That will change things, yeah. So God bless you.
God bless.
Happy Christmas. See you soon.
Bye.